San Diego State falls to Utah State 41-20 on the road. This is the post-game edition of Aztecs All In. Hello, I'm Louis Weiner along with Steve Perez. And if you happen to run some errands with the Aztecs up 13-0 with about 3 minutes left in the first half thinking, this is great. We got this one in hand. Well, it didn't exactly work out that way, Steve.
Well, I haven't been spending enough time watching college football in this era to have that happen. You know it's going to change. That's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, San Diego State, as I said, took a 13-0 lead at the half with about 3 minutes left, Steve, and everything seemed to be going their way. And then Utah State's quarterback, Spencer Petras, goes out. Bryson Barnes comes in, and all of a sudden, it's a different ballgame.
Going into this game, Louis, the big question for me was, would the Aztecs be able to score on their first possession and continue scoring? And they opened up as if they would continue to do that. Although the first play was a tackle for a loss, they were 5-0 in Logan, so reason for optimism there. They had the drive, the first sequence extended by a pass interference call, an automatic first down, and then Danny O'Neal took off for a long run, and they made another quick throw to Harrison, continued the drive. They had Cooper carrying, and then they got down into the red zone, first and goal inside the 5, and had a holding penalty. So that set them back, and they were playing behind the 8-ball on that drive. Still had a chance to score, went for it on fourth down. Not crazy about that fourth down call, Lewis. It was the fake to Cooper, and then they went to the opposite side, the pass to the tight end, Michael Harrison. O'Neal completed the pass, but it had no chance to go anywhere, and you just had to wonder if perhaps O'Neal hadn't decided to do something else with that football, either hand it off to Cooper if it was an ROP, or look to the other side of the field to see if someone else was open inside the end zone. That sort of opportunity is a golden one early on the road, and being unable to score and giving Utah State just a smidge of momentum to eke their way out of it was one of the many, what do they call them? Harbingers, right, of things to come.
Yeah, San Diego State offense stalled at the end of the half, Steve. They had golden opportunity to go into halftime with a lead, and they allowed Utah State to score to make it 13-7. And then the Aztecs couldn't get anything done. They went 3 and out, including a 5-yard pass to Lewis Brown IV, who decided to step out of bounds at that point, which stopped the clock. And then Utah State got the ball back and scored again. And all of a sudden, it went from 13-0 to 14-13 at halftime. And you go, uh-oh.
Another questionable sequence of play calls from sitting here on the couch. Easy for me to second guess. But on those 2 offensive possessions before the end of the first half, the Aztecs had a little momentum, and they continued trying to push the tempo. Only problem is they were not successful and had 2 quick 3-and-outs. That gave Utah State some extra time on the clock, and they made very good use of it. And they had Utah State on the ropes. Utah State had lost its number 1 running back. The quarterback had been knocked out of the game in Spencer Petras because the Aztecs got after him pretty good. But then Bryson Barnes came in, and again, the Aztecs have had issues with these big mobile quarterbacks. Bryson Barnes, big and mobile, and he ended up scoring 3 touchdowns, 13-15 passing, but the biggest damage that he made was on the ground. 15 carries, 193 yards, and a touchdown. His longest run was 63, but it seemed like in the second half, especially every time he looked up, he was gouging the Aztecs defense for more yards.
Yeah, second half, Utah State really ran the ball well. San Diego State, on the other hand, couldn't get out of its own way. They ran 70 plays today, Steve, or 71, and I counted 14 plays that were negative or no gain. So that's 20% of the plays where you're not gaining anything, not to mention penalties, 12 for 101, many of those on the offensive variety, false starts, again, shooting themselves in the foot. And I also want to point out the play calling from Coach Sean Lewis wasn't exactly inventive. It was a lot of runs from Marquez Cooper, who had another good game. but it was a lot of passes to the sideline, a lot of screen passes that some of them couldn't gain any yards. And it just looked like a repeat, drive after drive, where they weren't getting anything done.
I'm certain that a lot of that play calling in the second half had to do with whatever the defense was presenting and then also the personnel that Lewis had available to him. The Aztecs offensive line, as we've discussed, had some issues and they gave up a lot of penalties, so that halted a lot of drives or retarded a lot of drives. And O'Neal was under the gun when he would step back to throw. I heard a stat in one of the broadcasts that he took somewhere in the neighborhood of 13 hits and including a number of sacks. So with all of that presenting itself, the offensive selection gets narrowed down. You don't have the ability to get back and survey the field and let your receivers get down there and get open. And the result is what it is. 41-20, the final score. Utah State pretty much answering or going on unanswered round of scoring, 41 points to nothing except for the giveaway 7 toward the end when Javance Tupuata Johnson got in there and directed a scoring drive with time running out.
Yeah, let's talk about some positives. Marquez Cooper, 23 rushes, 118 yards, and he becomes the 23rd player in NCAA history to pass the 5,000-yard career rushing mark. So congratulations to him. And Lewis Brown the fourth reappeared. Steve, he sort of disappeared from the offense the last few weeks, but he had 7 catches for 114 yards. So good to see that. But overall, a very disappointing game. And if you happen to go over to the Aztec Mesa forum, uh, it was pretty negative, if you know how those things go. So fans not happy, Aztecs with their 5th straight loss.
Easy to do that behind the anonymity of a screen name on board on Aztec Mesa. Yeah, they get to be pretty salty, some of them, with their low tolerance for failure. But in their defense, and in the defense of most of us, this was a program up to 3, 4 years ago that was used to consistent success, and to have back to back losing seasons staring you in the face, even though they've had the coaching change, it is a little bit take in. So I guess you can not fault them for having a dim view of things at this moment. One game left. That P word comes out again, pride, and that's what you have left on senior night coming up against Air Force.
Yeah, Aztecs were 3-3, as I said, lost 5 straight. People were feeling a little bit better about the team at 3-3, and now with these 5 straight losses, some say that Lewis should be canned after one season, which is ridiculous. He's This team is not filled with all of the type of players that he wants to run his type of offense. So until he gets that opportunity to bring those players in, to say that he should only have one season and done just is pretty ridiculous as far as I'm concerned.
On the other hand, Utah State lost its head coach in a interesting coaching change before the season even began, and he, I see by the headlines, has now filed a lawsuit over his dismissal. So they're playing with house money with a coaching staff that is not guaranteed a job next year. So they're kind of free, easy. One of those chippy games, as I viewed it on TV. And Utah State had some players that seemed to take delight after the whistle activity. But despite that, Aztecs had the majority of the whistles before time was running out in the game.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's much more we need to unpack
Well,
from this one.
the one, it just kind of dovetail on that last comment. On that last scoring drive before the end of the half, there was a replay of a completed, apparently was incomplete, initially whistled incomplete, that was going Utah State's way. It was on the fake grounding of the ball to run out the clock, stop the clock for either another play or perhaps a field goal attempt that Bryson Barnes made. But instead of spiking that ball, he comes back up, tosses a pass to a wide receiver. The initial call on the field, and from the radio observers that I listened to and from the television observers I listened to, no one called that a completed pass. for some reason, whoever looked at that play somewhere in the Mountain West booth somewhere saw something that the rest of the nation did not see and called it complete. So, would they have gone ahead to score and continue the momentum that they had at the end of the first half? Who knows? But that was a judgment call that really seemed to help set the tone for the Utah State going into the second half. And they got the majority of the whistles on those judgment calls, it appeared.
Yeah, that about that touchdown, the ball was cupped in his hand, and that would be the only thing that would make me think that's the only way they could call that a touchdown, saying that he actually had possession of it there. But yeah, that was a bad call, I think, as did the announcers. So yeah, definitely didn't help the Aztecs going to halftime. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it's not going to help the Aztecs anymore to sit and talk about who failed which call where at this point.
Yeah.
It is what it is. 41-20, the final score. The Aztecs have senior night coming up against Air Force, and hopefully they can win that elusive fourth game of the season. So for Coach Lou, a familiar refrain after the Aztecs' eighth loss: miss opportunities, room for improvement for everyone, including the staff. But he sounded optimistic, as is his wont, about the future despite this most recent loss. The sound coming courtesy of San Diego Sports 760.
Yeah, I mean, we got to send the seniors out the right way, and we got to do a significantly better job than we've done all year long of living our core beliefs, of truly improving in each every single moment that we get, truly competing at the highest level that we can do, doing it collectively together. And regardless of the amount of work that lays in front of us, we need to embrace the opportunity to do that work and know and understand that there's no shortcuts to where we're going to go as we continue to build this thing the right way. We are doing great work here. It's going to continue to move in the right way, and it takes time to build something at a championship level. It's really, really easy in society to tear something down. It takes a different group of individuals to build and create. And we know that we got the right people here that are doing that. And we're going to continue to build. We're going to continue to create. And there's going to be championships that come home in the future to the Mesa. That I have no doubt about.
Thanks again to San Diego Sports 760 for the sound from the Eternal Optimist, Coach Sean Lewis. And now over to you, Lewis, for some upcoming Aztecs hoops action in Vegas.
Steve, the Aztecs are coming off a gritty 80-67 loss to number 3 Gonzaga, and it doesn't get any easier for the early part of the season as they now head to Las Vegas for the inaugural Players Era Tournament, an event that will bring in $1 million in NIL money for the program. Aztecs will face a familiar foe in number 14 Creighton at 11 a.m. on Tuesday. The Blue Jays are 4-1 on the season, coming off a 74-63 loss to Nebraska this week. Then Wednesday at 1 o'clock, it's 5-0 Oregon. And then Saturday, the Aztecs will face either Alabama, Houston, Notre Dame, or Rutgers. So some tough tests ahead for this Aztecs team. And Coach Brian Dutcher says that's not a bad thing.
And it's November basketball, so we're trying to grow our program, get better every day. And we have a tall task ahead of us with Creighton, someone we're very familiar with as Aztec fans. Playing them here in Viejas, beating us, McDermott, the coach, playing them in the Wooden Legacy, beating them with Doug, losing in the first round of the NCAA tournament to them in overtime, and then getting them to go to the Final Four. So this is a familiar foe, a good friend in Greg McDermott, and should be a really competitive basketball game in Las Vegas on Tuesday.
Myles Byrd is working his way back into playing shape. He missed the Occidental game due to an ankle injury and played just 20 minutes against Gonzaga with 0 points before leaving with cramps. But Byrd says the team will only get better after playing one of the best teams in the country.
I mean, you never want to lose a game, especially this early, but when you lose a game to the number 3 team in the country, I don't think you can really count that as a loss. It's more of just a lesson in general. We've seen what a top team in the country looks like, and I think we're right there. We have a couple young guys who are still getting around to the curve. I was playing, but I didn't play very well, obviously. So I think a few tweaks, and we would have been right in that game last second. So I think it was a good showing from us, but we just got to keep improving.
Coach Dutcher knows just how important this tournament is, not just for the experience his players will get, but that cash, the $1 million in NIL money. He says as college basketball continues to evolve, his program will continue to be relevant.
It's vitally important for us. Obviously, Mesa Foundation has done an incredible job helping us with NIL, making our fan base aware that we need NIL to be successful, and then to get a play in the players-only event where each team will hopefully receive $1 million in NIL money will be nothing but helpful to our program moving forward. It's competitive out there, and we have to remain competitive not only on the court but in the NIL world. Players are getting played. That's about as professional as you can get. So, it's getting more toward that way, and rightfully so. I think there's still a lot of room to grow with NIL and with the interpretation of it, and that's why these court cases are pending and rulings are around the horizon with revenue sharing. And so whatever it is currently, it will change, and whatever it is, we will adapt to that change and remain relevant in college basketball at San Diego State.
Senior transfer Jared Coleman Jones started his college career in 2019 at Northwestern, and he says college basketball has changed immensely in just the 5 years that he's been playing.
It's really different, man. It's like, I never expected college basketball to almost feel professional, because that's what it does feel like. It feels professional. So much media outlets and so much exposure. You have to be well trained and doing interviews and just interacting with the media, knowing what to say, knowing how to posture. It's just it's a completely different feel, like from when I first graduated and went to college. I was a college student and I thought about like parties and playing basketball. Like that's all I thought about. But like now it's really, getting yourself out there, talking to people, sharing with the world who you are. So it's really different.
So, Steve, it will be 3 games in 5 days for the Aztecs during Thanksgiving week in Las Vegas. And by next Saturday, we'll know just how thankful they really are.
All right, Lewis, at least we can look forward to some holiday hoops in Vegas and hopefully keep awake while we're knocking down our Thanksgiving turkey and taking a couple of post-game naps after that. At this point, though, we can now look forward to saying goodbye, right? You can catch us on the X at Aztecs_all_in. Hit us up on email, aztecsallin@gmail.com. So for Lewis Weiner, Steve Perez here saying thanks for checking us out on Aztecs All In.